When the committee formally downgraded the clear-minded statement clip from primary proof to contested supporting material, nobody in my world celebrated. At 9:43, the notice arrived. At 9:45, I printed it. At 9:47, I wrote 3 lines on a sticky note and pressed it above my steering wheel. Disassemble the packet. Validate numbering. Validate people. The freeze was still temporary. Temporary means borrowed time. Borrowed time means interest. At 10:12, I met Zhou Qiza and Guaning in a small conference room on the 4th floor of Qingxi branch. Frosted glass, stale coffee smell, one camera in the corner, one whiteboard no one used because handwriting creates disputes later. Guo opened the trust submission bundle index. 9 files. 9 polite names. 9 opportunities to hide sequence under formality. 1. Beneficiary change request. 2. Principal intent statement. 3. Family meeting memo. 4. Board office memorandum. 5. Notary receipt. 6. Witness video. 7. Identity documentation. 8. Trustee opinion. 9. Risk disclosure acknowledgement. Everything looked complete. Completeness is often a visual effect. Do not read content first, Zhou said. Read structure first. He was right. Content can seduce. Structure betrays. I clicked the board office memorandum and zoomed to top right corner. Document number. Board memo, 2026, number 17. I said nothing for 2 seconds. Then I opened my notes. My father's company switched document control standards in Q4 last year. Post-switch board memoranda used a unified code format. CYYYYXXX. This file was using legacy numbering. This is old format numbering, I said. Guo did not challenge, but his eyes narrowed in the way risk officers do when they start building their own internal caution flags. Can legacy format still be used by exception? Maybe, I said. But if so, exception reason should be logged. Also, footer style is old. Zhou took the printout and circled 3 places. The number format, the footer spacing, and the absence of version code required in post-switch templates. Style discrepancy alone won't invalidate anything, Guo said. Agreed, Zhou answered. Style discrepancy opens inquiry path, not conclusion. I added the first anchor to my chain. Template era inconsistency in a date-sensitive governance document. At 10:30, I opened the notary receipt. Issuance time, April 24, 2026, 20:05. The beneficiary submission commit time we already had. 1912. I wrote both side by side. 1912 commit. 20:05 receipt issue. If this receipt is represented as part of the initial complete submission set, I said, we have temporal inversion. We pulled system operation trace and filtered by slot updates. 2022. Attachment replace doc_slot_5. Doc_slot_5 mapped to the notary receipt. He tapped the screen with his pen cap. Their likely argument is post-commit supplementation within same evening, not fabrication. Then we can test chain stability, not motive, I said. Good, Zhou said. Keep it there. At 10:49 we moved to family meeting memo. Text looked tidy. Too tidy. I searched for conversational irregularities, interruptions, or speech markers. None. It read like someone wrote minutes for a future judge, not for a live family argument. Who drafted this? I asked. Guo checked metadata entry. Uploader identity. Delegated household support account. Not directly Han Qi. Not directly Chan Manhua. Always one layer of frosted glass. At 11:06 we closed the first pass with action items. 1. Verify board memo numbering against company document control policy in force at the time. 2. Verify where Han Qi physically was at 1912. 3. Verify whether notary receipt was post-commit supplementation and under what protocol. 4. Preserve all trace logs before additional edits. At 11:19 I drove to my father's company. The lobby still smelled like citrus cleaner and machine coffee, exactly like the year I interned there and thought adults solved problems in meetings. Reception recognized me and still made 2 calls before giving me a temporary badge. Legal said they can only provide stamped final copies unless approved by acting board secretary. Who is acting board secretary this week? The receptionist hesitated. Mr. Han. Of course. I waited in a side room with artificial plants and a muted market news channel. At 11:44 a.m. legal manager came in, polite enough to sound rehearsed. Ms. Lin, due to governance sensitivity and active dispute, we cannot grant version library access without proper board secretary approval. I am requesting preservation and read-only freeze, not extraction. Preservation request can be submitted formally. To whom? Acting board secretary. Han Chi. He gave the smallest possible nod. Please register this as a formal preservation request now, I said, and provide receipt timestamp. He agreed to register. Receipt stamped 11:52. I photographed the stamp before the ink dried. At 12:03 I received a message from Chun Man-hwa. You're checking company records now? Must you destroy every room left in this family? I answered. I am checking process records. Family can survive facts. It cannot survive forged sequence. She replied in 30 seconds. Process is made by people. If you trust no people, process means nothing. I read it once and put the phone face down. It was a good line. Good lines are often traps. At 12:21 Luo Yen, an admin manager who had worked with my father for years, passed by the side room and stopped. Can we talk for 1 minute? She asked. We stepped to the fire stairwell where cameras saw faces but not papers. I cannot give you internal originals, she said quietly. But that night Han was not in HQ at 1912. He went to Chengnan accounting firm before 6 and left there after 8. Do you have records? Driver reimbursement draft and parking timestamps exist in system. I can ask IT to set read-only freeze, but I cannot export without chain. Set freeze. I'll bring formal letter. Do it fast, she said. Systems get cleaned when people panic. At 12:29 I sent Zhou a memo. Potential location contradiction for Han Chi at 1912. Source. Internal admin verbal lead. Need formal extraction via preservation chain. Zhou replied. Good lead. Treat as directional until documented. At 12:43 I sat in my car and called Gua. We have potential physical location conflict for Han during claimed packet assembly hour. Can you document source? Directional source only so far. Then do not overstate in committee communication. Flag as pending corroboration. Understood. At 13:02, I went to notary office with Zhou. Counter staff denied full file access. Expected. Zhou submitted legal letter requesting minimal verification only. Receipt issuance time. Acceptance order index. And whether prenumbering existed before issuance. Staff went inside for 10 minutes. Returned with 2 answers and 1 silence. Acceptance number valid. Issuance time 20:05 valid. Prenumbering visibility not available to external query. No contradiction resolved. No contradiction repaired. At 13:29 we left with a stamped inquiry acknowledgement. I wrote, notary time remains downstream of commit time. At 14:07 Gua sent a risk alert. Opposing side submitted completeness explanation. Files may have been uploaded in stages within same evening. No impact on principal intent authenticity. I read it aloud in the parking lot. Their strategy had shifted. From the video proves clarity to stage supplementation is normal and harmless. I texted Zhou. We need to attack protocol boundary for staged supplementation. He replied, yes. Ask when stage supplementation becomes material change risk. At 14:33 Han Chi called. No greeting. No preface. How far are you taking this? He asked. Where were you at 1912 on April 24th? I don't remember. Were you in HQ? I said I don't remember. Board memo implies you were involved in same evening file assembly. Many documents are process handled. I don't read every line. You sign things you didn't read? Don't frame it like a trap. Then give me your calendar. access records, and version timeline. Silence. Don't push me, Sueon. I am not pushing you. The timeline is. He hung up. At 15:12, I got an encrypted message from Luo Yen with 3 screenshots, no originals. Driver dispatch. HQ-Chengnan, depart 1742. Parking exit. Chengnan Complex, 2031. Expense draft item. Special briefing, Hanqi. She added one line. I can only provide this much informally. Preserve formally if you want it to survive. I forwarded immediately with caution tag. Directional evidence only, pending source chain extraction.
Zhou.
Useful. Need originals before committee weight upgrade.
Gua.
Noted. Can support location contradiction inquiry section. At 15:44, I visited my father. He looked thinner than yesterday, as if sleep had negotiated unfavorable terms with his body. You came from company? He asked.
Yes.
Checking document sequence. Find anything? Find enough to keep digging. He nodded once. When I was younger, he said slowly, I feared 2 kinds of files. One's prepared too early. One's completed too late. I wrote the sentence down exactly. Do you remember the family meeting night? I asked. Your aunt was there. Han was there. Manhua kept saying I should speak less because I was tired. Any recording? Your aunt records everything. She doesn't trust her memory. I looked up. You sure? As sure as I can be. At 16:11, Chen Manhua entered with soup. She saw my notebook and tightened her grip on the thermos handle. What are you writing now? She asked. What he remembers. He needs recovery, not deposition. Recovery and memory can coexist. Not with this intensity. Then help with raw chain disclosures. We already gave all needed files. Then, why does notary receipt time sit 53 minutes after commit? She looked at me, then at my father, then back. Because real life is not as clean as your reports. Then don't market it as clean. My father closed his eyes. No arguing here. I left. At 16:39, my aunt called and asked to meet in person. No details by phone. We met at 24-hour pharmacy side entrance near hospital back gate. She wore a baseball cap and held an old phone like it was warm. I did not want to give this, she said. But if I keep it and you lose because of missing sequence, I will not sleep again. She handed me the device. Family meeting recording. There are gaps, but key section is there. I did not hit play immediately. Will you sign source declaration if needed? She looked away. I will decide when we reach that point. But yes, I won't deny it exists. I exported audio, calculated hash, logged extraction timestamp, and generated rough transcript. At 19 hours, 3 minutes, and 17 seconds in the recording, Han Chi's voice came through clearly under cup clink noise. Switch the name first. Capacity assessment can be supplemented later. We still make the window. Then Chen Manhua. Do executable first. Don't let the funding window pass. I replayed that section 3 times. No shouting. No threat. Only cold process language. I annotated it. Potential sequencing intent indicator. Not final proof without source authentication. My aunt watched my face. Enough? She asked. Enough for a hinge, I said. Not enough for a verdict. You really talk like legal now. I talk like I need this to survive scrutiny. At 17:26, I sent summary to Zhou and Gua with strict labels. Source, and device recording. Status, hash captured, source declaration pending. Content, key quote on sequencing and delayed capacity assessment. Use, challenge one-step complete compliance narrative. Zhou replied in under a minute. Do not disclose publicly yet. Source freeze and authentication first thing tomorrow. Gua replied. If source chain holds, this materially affects supplementation narrative risk profile. At 17:40, 1 unknown text. Do not file that audio. We can reach your aunt too. I archived, hashed forwarded. At 17:50, to another unknown text. Checking document numbers won't save you. Stamps decide. I archived that one too. At 18:03 I called my aunt back. Please save all call logs and messages. Do not discuss storage locations with anyone. Do not open unknown links. Sueon, this is getting ugly. Ugly is manageable. Unrecorded is not. Will they come to my house? If anyone contacts you about legal documents, ask for full name, firm, and written notice.
Send it to me.
Do not engage verbally. Okay. At 1826, I met Joe in his office to design authentication path. He listed required steps on a legal pad. 1. Source device imaging request. 2. Hash reproducibility confirmation. 3. Voice identity preliminary consistency review. 4. Chain of custody statement from source holder. 5. Timestamp context validation with other events. We cannot use this quote as dagger yet, he said. We use it as controlled lever. Understood. Also prepare for attack on your aunt's credibility. I know. And don't romanticize this. Family witnesses break easily. I won't romanticize anything. At 19:02 Gua called. Committee checkpoint tomorrow morning. They want document chain risk map by 8:30. Will deliver. Make sure to separate verified from directional. Already split. Good. Risk committees hate mixed certainty. At 19:18 I sat at my desk and opened a new file. Document chain risk map, draft. Section 1 verified. Legacy numbering onboard memo. Notary issuance at 20:05. Submission commit at 19:12. Doc_slot_5 replacement at 2022. Video reliability already contested in prior phase. Section 2 directional pending authentication. Han location contradiction leads. Family meeting recording quote. Possible staged supplementation intent. Section 3 requested actions. Preserve version library. Extract location records via formal chain. Authenticate recording source. Downgrade completeness narrative confidence until chain stabilizes. At 19:57 Chen Manhua called. What do you want from me exactly? She asked. Raw document handling chain. You keep saying chain.
Chain. Chain.
You think family care has chain logs. When care modifies legal rights, yes. You think this makes you righteous?
No.
It makes me auditable. I did what I thought was safest. Safety, without verifiable consent, can become control. She was silent for 5 seconds. There are things you don't understand. Then explain in writing with timestamps. She hung up. At 2011, I continued drafting. At 2024, unknown number called. Silent 8 seconds. Disconnected. Archived. At 2031, my father texted. Are you still working? I answered.
Yes.
He replied. Don't forget to eat. I looked at a cold sandwich on my desk and ate half of it while reading my own draft out loud for overstatement traps. At 2048, Zhou sent edits. Replace manipulative sequencing with sequence indicating potential post-priority supplementation intent. Replace fabricated completeness with completeness assertion not yet robust under current chain. I accepted all edits. At 21:06, Gua sent template fields for committee. Confidence tiers required per bullet. I assigned. High confidence, time fields and replacement event. Medium confidence, template era inconsistency significance, pending corporate policy copy. Low to medium, recording quote until source declaration signed. At 21:19, my aunt forwarded a screenshot of Han Chi from April 24, 1812. Need a clean clip tonight. No recipient name visible. No metadata yet. I tagged. Directional artifact. Authenticity pending.
Zhou.
Do not include in body. Annex only with caution flag.
Gua.
Noted. At 21:43, I finalized committee packet and sent. Acknowledgement from Gua at 21:47. At 22:03, I opened a separate file. Potential witness pressure log. Entries included. Threat text referencing and unknown silent calls. Messages after each procedural milestone. I did not place this in core proof body. Pressure context is not substantive proof, but ignoring pattern is negligence. At 22:26, I called Luo Yan using encrypted app. Can you hold the version library until formal order arrives? We set read-only preservation flag on relevant directory snapshots, she said. But if top-level admin overrides, I can't stop that. Can you capture override logs? Yes, if they happen. Please do. Sueon, she said, lower voice, you should know HR is asking who has been contacted regarding April 24th records. Meaning? Internal pressure is rising. Thank you. At 22:49, I saved chat transcript hash and added internal pressure indicator, company side. At 23:07, my father texted, can you come tomorrow morning before rounds? I replied,
Yes.
He sent. I remember a phrase from that night. I called immediately. What phrase? I asked. Someone said, we can tidy forms later. Who said it? I don't know. Maybe Han. Maybe someone else. I was tired. That's okay. I'll mark it as uncertain recollection. Do that, he said. Don't make me more sure than I am. I closed my eyes. I won't. At 23:31, Chen Manhua texted, if you keep digging, there will be nothing left to repair. I answered, repair can begin after sequence stabilizes. No response. At 23:44, unknown text. Last chance to drop the audio. Archived. At 0:08, I went through final packet check. Body 2 pages. Annex list 4 pages. Hash table appended. Confidence labels consistent. No motive claims in core section. At 0:27, I shut my laptop and lay down fully clothed, then got up at 0:39 to add one line I had forgotten. Request immediate preservation of board memo version history and editing identities. At 0:51, final send. 6:12 alarm. 6:24 coffee. 6:30, 6 packet reread. 6:44 send confirmation. 7:03 Guo acknowledged. 7:07 Zhou acknowledged. At 7:32 I visited my father before rounds. He looked clearer than yesterday. You came, he said. I said I would. What are you doing today? Committee checkpoint. Then source authentication for meeting recording. Recording, he asked. From that night. He looked at the blanket for several seconds. I hate this. Me too. But if you use it clean. I will. And don't make me a weapon against her. I won't make anyone a weapon. He nodded.
Good.
At 8:15, I joined committee call in branch room. Guo presented verified chain. Zhou presented legal framing. I answered factual clarifications. Committee question. Strongest verified inconsistency today. I answered. Submission completeness is asserted as same evening harmless supplementation, yet key components show temporal and structural instability. Post-commit replacement at 2022, notary issuance downstream at 2005 after 1912 commit, and governance memo format not aligned with active template regime. Second question. What is your most sensitive unverified lead? Family meeting audio indicating possible sequence first, capacity later intent. Source chain pending authentication. At 9:02 committee interim position. Maintain freeze. Require formal preservation request to company version library. Treat completeness narrative as reduced confidence pending chain stabilization. Permit controlled intake of recording only after source declaration and hash reproducibility validation. I wrote every line. At 9:11 Guo texted me privately. Good discipline on certainty separation. At 9:14 Zhou texted. Now we move fast on source declaration before witness pressure escalates. At 9:20 I called my aunt. Can we meet with counsel today to sign source declaration? She inhaled audibly. Do I have to? Only if you want the recording to protect you instead of exposing you. I can come at noon. Thank you. At 9:36 I received a formal email from company legal. Board memo version library preservation request accepted pending scope confirmation. This was the first time they said accepted instead of pending. At 9:44 Luo, Yen messaged. Read-only snapshot completed 9:40. I sent thank you and saved hash. At 10:03 unknown text. So now you're making elders sign statements. Archived. At 10:21 Chen Manhua called. Are you bringing your aunt into this formally? She asked. Yes. You are tearing apart every remaining trust. Trust without traceability is hostage language. You don't hear yourself anymore. Maybe. But committee heard the chain. This isn't over.
No.
It isn't. At 10:43 I met Zhou to prepare declaration script for my aunt. No leading prompts. No pressure language. Only process facts. Device ownership. Recording date memory. Export moment witnessed. Consent to provide source for authentication. At 11:56 my aunt arrived at Zhou's office, hands shaking enough to rattle the water glass. I don't want to accuse anyone, she said. You are not accusing, Zhou replied. You are confirming source conditions. She read the declaration slowly. Signed at 12:19. We video documented signing with explicit consent and timestamp. At 12:30, we performed reproducibility, hash check on her device export. Hash matched prior extraction. I let out a breath I had postponed since yesterday. At 12:46 Zhou filed controlled submission notice. Recording source declaration attached. Hash reproducibility confirmed. Request admission as conditional contextual evidence. At 13:03 Guo acknowledged receipt and scheduled internal validation. At 13:11 my father texted. Did morning go okay? I answered.
Yes.
We stabilized one more link. He replied.
Good.
One link at a time. At 13:27 I sat in my car and opened the project note for episode 3 closeout. What we entered with. Contested video. Temporary freeze. Unstable confidence. What we exit with. Document chain instability mapped. Completeness narrative downgraded. Board memo preservation accepted. Family recording source authenticated for conditional use. What remains? Extract company version history. Verify Han location with originals. Challenge memo authorship path. Prepare next chain. At 13:40, Gua sent formal follow-up. Freeze remains active. Document chain review escalated. Recording admitted for limited contextual consideration, pending voice analysis. At 13:48, Zhou called. We have enough to open episode 4 on funds routing intent. Before that, I said, I want one more thing from this chain. What? Who authored the board memo body text? Version history may tell us. Then that's tonight. At 14:06 unknown text. You think signatures protect you. I archived it and did not blink. At 14:22 I visited my father once more before starting the next phase. How are you?
I asked. Tired, he said.
But less foggy today.
Good.
Did you find what happened? Not all of it. Enough. Enough to keep the money still and the story unstable. He looked at me for a long time. You always wanted certainty. I learned to settle for controlled uncertainty. He nodded. That's wiser. At 14:44 I left the room and walked past the blue-gray kiosk again. Maintenance ribbon still there. Silent machine. Too ordinary for the damage it had carried. In episode 1 it was the route. In episode 2 it was the drift. In episode 3 it became the bridge to documents that claimed to be clean. Now, the next question waited. If the packet was assembled in stages, who choreographed the stages? At 15:03 I opened a fresh note. Episode 4 prep. Funds path and intent. First line. Follow money routing setup relative to document supplementation times. Second line. Map shell account pre-creation versus claim of care-driven urgency. Third line. Do not lose document chain while chasing funds chain. At 15:17 Gua sent a short message. Voice pre-check on recording likely available tomorrow. At 15:20 Zhou. And company version index extraction hearing maybe within 48h. At 15:26 my aunt.
Please tell me I did the right thing.
I replied. You did the verifiable thing. At 15:40, I locked the episode 3 folder, ran checksum across all new files, and labeled the phase. Document validity chain opened and stabilized. Then I wrote one closing line on the sticky note above my wheel, replacing yesterday's task list. Not clean stories. Clean sequence. I started the engine and drove toward the next chain. At 16:02, I did not drive far. Joe called and asked me to turn around. Company counsel just agreed to a limited pre-hearing extraction of version index headers, he said. No content yet. Only index. I U-turned at the next light and went back to his office. At 16:30, when we logged into the secure review terminal with company legal on remote line. Screen shared. Read-only mode. Audit trail active. Index list for the board office memorandum appeared in a plain table. Version 0.1 created April 24, 2026 by account. doc_ops_support_2. Version 0.2 edited April 24, 2041 by account. doc_ops_support_2. Version 1.0 finalized April 24, 2058 by account. Board sec_delegate. Signature token applied April 24, 2104. I stared at the first timestamp. 2026. Our trust submission commit was 1912. Your memo did not even exist at commit time, I said before I could soften it. Company counsel replied immediately. Please note this may refer to uploaded finalization sequence, not drafting inception. Then provide drafting inception metadata. That requires further approval. Noted, Joe said, cutting in before the room heated. For record, current visible index indicates post-commit creation timestamp in final library path. I wrote, board memo index creation downstream by 74 minutes. At 16:47, legal tried to close session. I asked one more question. Who owns account doc_ops_support_2? Shared operations account. Shared by which roles? Document operations pool. Named individuals? Cannot disclose in this session. Shared accounts are the shelter of procedural weather. No one is directly visible, everyone is potentially responsible. At 16:52, Joe requested formal disclosure of account custody logs. Request receipt issued 16:55. At 17:03, Gwa joined by call. Can you send me the index screenshot now? He asked. I sent with chain note. Source. Controlled corporate review session. Limitations. Index headers only. Core implication. Memo finalization path post-dates trust commit. At 17:10, Gwa responded. This materially weakens same time complete packet narrative. At 17:18, while we were still in conference room, Chin Manhua texted. I heard you are digging internal company logs now. Do you need to burn every bridge? I did not answer immediately. I wrote first. Bridge to where? Then deleted it. Final reply. I requested index headers under formal chain. Her response came in 30 seconds. You are humiliating your father in front of his own people. I put the phone down. Humiliation was not my axis. Control was. At 17:30, one company counsel sent a follow-up email trying to frame the index. Timestamps may reflect upload synchronization and archival events rather than initial drafting moment. I forwarded to Joe and Gwa and tagged. Anticipated defense. Sync lag explanation.
Joe.
Then we ask for raw event classes and system clock policy.
Gwa.
And compare with other documents generated same day in same system. At 17:56, I went to the hospital. My father was asleep. Chin was in the corridor on a call, voice low. She ended when she saw me. Did you get what you wanted today? She asked. I got index headers. Headers don't tell truth. Neither do edited summaries. You keep treating everything like evidence. Everything affecting rights is evidence. She crossed her arms. What if all this proves nothing except you distrusting everyone? Then at least distrust will be documented, not improvised. For a second, she looked genuinely tired, not strategic. I thought I was keeping things from collapsing. Then show the full chain. There are gaps. Then we map gaps. We don't hide them. She looked past me into the room where my father slept. You don't understand how messy caregiving is. I understand mess. I don't accept disguised order. At 1814, I left before we circled the same sentences again. At 1839, my aunt texted. Unknown person asked our building guard whether I still keep old phones. I called immediately. Did guard give description? Male, cap, no name, said he was helping with legal consolidation. Do not discuss anything with guard. Ask for written notice next time. Save camera times if possible. Sueon, I regret getting involved. Regret later. Preserve now. At 1858, I sent witness pressure update to Zhou and Gua. Gua replied, we can add protective handling request for source witness identity minimization. Zhou replied,
Yes.
Submit tonight. At 1912, I opened my laptop at home and drafted 2 documents. 1. Committee update, version index contradiction. 2. Witness protection handling request, limited identity exposure in review packet. At 1930, 6 unknown text arrived. Shared account means you can prove nothing. I archived it and wrote. Someone follows our arguments in near real time. At 1949, I asked Gua directly, can internal communication leakage be scoped now? He answered, limited scope approved for trust side team. Cross-institution scope pending. Start limited now. Already started. At 20:03, Zhou called. Good news and bad news, he said. Start with bad. Company will resist named custody disclosure for shared ops account. Good news? Resistance itself helps us argue governance weakness in high-risk, right-changing submission. I prefer disclosure to argument. So do I. But we use what we get. At 2019, I sent committee packet update. Board memo final library path begins 2026. Finalization 2058. Signature token 2104. All downstream from 1912 trust commit. At 2027, Gua acknowledged. At 2031, my father texted, will you come tomorrow morning? I answered.
Yes.
He replied, need to discuss who handles my care meetings if this continues. That was the first time he had phrased it as if planning beyond the crisis. I saved the message in 2 folders. Family. Capacity context. At 2046, Han Chi called from an unknown number again. You're misreading internal systems, he said immediately. Those timestamps are sync, not creation. Then provide event class legend and raw logs. I don't control that. You are acting board secretary. Acting, not omnipotent. Were you at HQ at 2026? I told you I don't remember exact times. I have directional records placing you in Chengnan Complex until 2031. Silence. Directional is not proof, he said finally.
Correct.
So provide proof. Why are you doing this to family? I am doing this to sequence. He hung up. At 2107, I received a compressed file from an address I did not recognize. Subject line. For your timeline. I did not open it. I forwarded to Zhou with note. Unknown source attachment. Quarantine review needed. He replied. Do not open locally. We'll sandbox tomorrow. At 21:22, my aunt called crying. Chen says if this keeps going, no one will speak to me again. Did she threaten you? Not directly. She said consequences. Save exact wording if she messages. I don't want to be witness. Then be source custodian. That's narrower. Is there a difference?
Yes.
Source custodian confirms where file came from. Witness tells stories. I need less story, more chain. She took a shaky breath. Okay. At 21:49, Gua sent limited leakage skin prelim. Several threat texts correlate with timing of internal packet status updates. Origin not attributable yet. Correlation without attribution. Useful but still fog. At 22:04, I drafted next day checklist. Request event class legend for document system timestamps. Request shared account custody logs for doc_ops_support_2. Request boardsec_delegate token assignment log. Request original location records for Han. Submit witness source handling protocol. At 22:30, Chen Manhua texted, "If I provide a statement saying supplementation happened later for practical reasons, will you stop escalating?" I read it twice. It was the first semi-concession. I replied, "Provide full written chain with who / when / what changed and why. Then we evaluate." She answered, "You will use anything I write against me." I replied, "I will use timelines against contradictions." No further message. At 22:58, I received was committee scheduling. Checkpoint 8:45 tomorrow. Additional slot reserved if new logs arrive. At 23:12, I printed all new documents and color tapped. Blue equals verified timestamps. Orange equals pending interpretation. Gray equals witness pressure context. Green equals requested disclosures. At 23:29, my father texted, "Don't let them use my confusion as a shield." I answered, "I won't." He sent, "And don't use my confusion as a hammer either." I stared at the screen, then replied, "Understood." At 23:56, I closed my eyes for 20 minutes, woke at 0:19, and kept working. At 0:37, Zhou sent a late-night note. If they claim sync lag, ask for independent comparator. Another document finalized in same system, same hour. I added, request adjacent document benchmark. At 1:04, I finally slept. 6:06 alarm. 6:17 coffee. 6:41 packet check. 7:02 send. At 7:18, I visited my father before rounds as promised. "You came early," he said. "Committee call at 8:45. "I want to set one thing now," he said. "Until this settles, medical meetings you attend with me. Daily logistics she handles. No unilateral paperwork in room." I wrote it down. "Do you want this recorded with nurse station?"
Yes.
"Keep it simple." At 7:31, I asked charge nurse to note care meeting attendance preference and no unilateral paperwork processing during sedation windows. She agreed to add a care note entry. At 7:38, Chen arrived and watched us from the door. "So now even care notes are legal tools?" she asked. "Care notes are care tools," I said. "Legal relevance comes later." "You are rewriting this family."
No.
"I'm writing what should have been written." My father said from the bed, "Enough. Both of you." We stopped. At 8:45, committee call opened. Gua presented index contradiction. Zhou presented legal interpretation boundaries. I presented requested disclosure list. Committee asked, "What if timestamps are archive sync events?" I answered, "Then event class logs and adjacent document benchmark should confirm that." We requested both. Until then, downstream index timing still weakens one-step completeness assertion. Committee asked, "Status of source recording? Declaration signed, reproducible hash confirmed, controlled admission requested." At 9:17, interim outcome. Freeze maintained. Completeness narrative confidence further reduced. Urgent request approved for event class legend and token custody logs. Recording admitted for limited contextual support pending voice pre-check. At 9:24, Gua sent written summary. At 9:30, Zhou called.
Good.
"Now we need the logs before they spin interpretation." "Any timeline?" "Could come today if pressure holds." At 9:42, Han texted, "Stop dragging my name through assumptions." I replied,
Provide logs.
"No assumptions needed." At 10:03, company legal sent partial response. Doc_ops_support_2 account custody rotates among 3 operation staff. Boardsec_delegate token assigned to acting board secretary workflow pool. Individual attribution requires internal HR approval. No names, but no denial either. At 10:17, Zhou summarized. They confirmed shared accountability architecture in a high-stakes right submission. That's governance weakness we can use. At 10:26, Gua. Need one more push. Event class legend. At 10:39, unknown text. You won't get names. Archived. At 10:52, my aunt came to Joe's office for optional follow-up and looked calmer. I saved everything, she said. No more phone calls with them. Good, I said. Was signing that statement the right move? It stabilized source. That's what we needed. Will they hate me? Maybe. But hate is not metadata. She almost laughed despite herself. At 11:08, the Sandbox team returned analysis of last night's unknown compressed file. Contents: 2 low-resolution screenshots of an internal spreadsheet. 1 line highlighted. Memo body draft prepared by HQ support. No source authentication. Possible bait. We marked unusable pending provenance. At 11:24, GWA sent crucial update. Event class legend received. Code E17 equals initial create in library namespace. Code E41 equals content edit. Code S09 equals signature token attach. Which meant 2026 was not sync-only archive event. It was create. I read the line 3 times. Then once out loud. At 11:31, I called Joe. E17 is initial create. Are you sure? Legend signed by system administrator. Send now. At 11:34, I forwarded legend with signature stamp. At 11:37, Joe replied. This is big. It converts interpretation fight into direct sequence contradiction. At 11:45, GWA requested ad hoc mini checkpoint at 12:30. At 12:06, I grabbed a rice bowl and ate it standing by the printer while waiting for call. At 12:30, mini checkpoint opened. GWA presented event class legend. Joe presented implications. Board memo library object created after trust commit. Cannot be part of contemporaneous complete packet at 1912. Committee asked, could there be an earlier off-library draft?
Joe.
Possible, but then completeness claim should disclose off-library draft path and chain. No such disclosure provided. I added. And if off-library drafts existed, authorship and handling chain become even more material. At 12:52, mini checkpoint conclusion. Freeze maintained with strengthened rationale. Request issued for disclosure of off-library drafting claims if any. Completeness assertion marked materially compromised under current chain. I leaned back in my chair for the first time all day. At 13:03, Chin called. What did you submit at noon? She asked. System event legend. You are making technical noise into moral judgment.
No.
I am making technical sequence into reviewable fact. I told you real-life drafts happen before systems. Then disclose those drafts with chain. You're impossible. I'm documented. She ended the call. At 13:20, my father texted. Any change? I answered.
Yes.
We proved memo object creation time is after commit. He replied. Then someone assembled story backward. That sentence went straight into my notes. At 13:44, company legal sent second response. HR review may permit named custody disclosure within 3 business days. 3 business days was too long for certainty, but enough for pressure. At 14:02, Joe advised. Use this window to pivot to funds chain without dropping document chain. Episode 4 timing? I asked. Start data collection today. Keep hearings parallel. At 14:17, GWA forwarded account routing prescan. Shell corporate account under Chen affiliated entity opened 72 hours before beneficiary commit. I stared at the timestamp. There it was. The money trail knocking while document trail still warm. At 14:23, Joe. This is your bridge. Document sequence contradiction plus pre-opened routing vehicle. At 14:29, I opened a new folder. 04_funds_routing_chain. First file saved. Pre-open accounting note. Directional. At 14:36, unknown text. You should have stopped at the video. Archived. At 14:49, I visited my father again. He looked exhausted but alert. Did you eat? He asked. Yes. Liar. Half liar. He breathed out almost a smile. Where are you now? Document chain stabilized. Moving into funds chain. Be careful, he said. Money makes decent people write in decent timelines. I know. And Sueon. Yes. When this ends, we still have to live somewhere, not just win somewhere. I know. At 15:12 I left the room and wrote his line down before I could forget the exact wording. At 15:26 my aunt texted. Chin asked if I can clarify my statement later. I replied, do not revise outside council presence. No verbal clarifications. Written only. At 15:40, one was sent. Voice precheck scheduled tomorrow morning. At 15:44 Zhou.
Good.
Prepare neutral summary bridging doc chain to funds chain for tomorrow. At 16:03 I sat at my desk and drafted episode 3 close memo. What changed? Completeness narrative downgraded from stable to materially compromised. Board memo create /edit /sign sequence established as post-commit. Source recording chain stabilized for conditional contextual use. Freeze maintained through contradiction-driven review. What remains open? Named custody attribution for shared accounts. Off-library draft path disclosure if claimed. Han location originals. Voice consistency confirmation. What opens next? Prepositioned funds routing structures. At 16:42, I sent close memo to Zhou and Gua. Acknowledgements at 16:47 and 16:49. At 17:05 unknown text. Names won't come out. Archive. At 17:18 Chen sent. If I give full statement, will you stop contacting everyone? I replied. Provide full dated chain with handlers and file states first. Then we assess scope reduction. She did not answer. At 17:44, I printed episode 3 archive index. New files today, 23. Verified upgrades 4. Directional leads carried forward, 6. Thread events logged, 5. At 18:03 I stood by my car and looked at the hospital tower, then at the company tower in the distance, and thought how quickly family disputes learn to speak in enterprise systems when money is involved. Episode 3 had done what it was supposed to do. It took polished file names and made them answer to timestamps. We had not named every hand, but we had broken the illusion that the packet arrived whole and innocent. At 18:21 Gua sent one last update for the day. Freeze status unchanged. No outbound movement authorized. I forwarded to Zhou with one line. Carry to morning. He replied. Carry and pivot. At 18:37 my father texted. Tomorrow bring me that old fountain pen from study drawer. I answered. Which drawer? He replied. Second left. The one with old versions. Old versions. Even in this, he still spoke in document language. At 18:49 I wrote the final line for episode 3 in my notebook. From now on, every complete file enters as a suspect until its clock is clean. Then I opened the episode 4 prep note and typed the first actionable question. Who prepared routing capacity before consent narrative was supposedly settled? By 1902 the answer had already started coming one timestamp at a time. At 1916, I thought the day was done. At 1918, Gua sent another secure ping. One preliminary routing data extract available if you can review now. I called immediately. Send. He replied. Remote view only. No download. 10-minute window. At 1924, I logged into the branch secure portal from my laptop. File opened. Account opening event summary. Chin affiliated entity. Timestamp. April 21st, 2026, 10:14. Beneficiary commit. April 24th, 2026, 1912.
Gap.
Approximately 72 hours. Pre-opening did not prove wrongdoing. It proved preparation existed before claimed spontaneous same-night family stabilization. I copied key fields by hand. Entity name masked. Purpose code listed as Household Asset Management Support. Linked route profile created pre-commit. I tagged the note. Funds chain anchor candidate number 1. At 1937, Zhou joined call. This is exactly the bridge we needed, he said. Can we use it now? Directional tonight, Evidentiary tomorrow once source certificate arrives. Understood. At 1944 my aunt texted.
Han called me.
Asked if I can say I may have remembered the quote incorrectly. I called her. Did you agree?
No.
I said I signed already.
Good.
Save call log. He sounded scared. Fear is not a correction. I know. At 20:02 Chin sent a longer message than usual. I never wanted to erase you. I wanted to keep bills, care, and decisions from collapsing while your father was unstable. Yes, things were handled quickly. No, I did not think through every format code and sequence. I read it 3 times. There was no full chain, no handler list, no time map, but there was something new. Speed admitted. I forwarded to Zhou with annotation. Admission of accelerated handling, still non-specific. He replied. Useful context. Press for specifics, not emotion. At 2019 I answered Chen. If you want de-escalation, provide table. Document, creator, editor, uploader, timestamp, reason for supplement. No reply. At 2041 unknown text. Stop asking for tables. Archive. At 21:03 I began drafting one-page bridge memo for next morning. How document sequence instability and pre-opened routing profile interact in risk assessment. Version 1 sounded accusatory. I deleted half. Version 2 sounded sterile. I deleted half again. Final version. Given material sequence instability in the document packet and confirmed pre-commit routing preparation, decision-makers should avoid treating any single explanatory narrative as complete until chain disclosure is fully tested. At 21:30, 6 Zhou approved wording. At 21:40, Gua accepted for committee pre-read. At 22:04 my father called instead of texting. You still awake? He asked. Yes. Do you have tomorrow's plan?
Yes.
Voice pre-check, then funds route certification request.
Good.
Dad, did you want anything from home besides the pen? Bring old reading glasses too. The black case. Okay. And Sueon? Yes. When you write notes about me, include where I'm uncertain. I do. Thank you. He ended the call before either of us said more. At 22:27 I reviewed uncertainty tags across all father statements in episode 3. I found one line where my own summary had drifted from uncertain to likely. I corrected it back to uncertain. Fatigue pushes certainty upward if not watched. At 22:44 Gua sent schedule. 8:20 voice pre-check. 9:10 committee update. 10 o'clock funds route certificate request filing. At 22:58 I printed tomorrow's checklist and wrote one line at top. Do not promote directional evidence under pressure. At 23:17 unknown number called. No voice. 12 seconds of breathing. Disconnect. I logged it, archived it, slept at 23:49. 6:01 alarm. 6:14 coffee. 6:33 hospital stop for pen and glasses. At 6:52 my father handed me the black glasses case and watched me put the pen in my bag. That pen leaks, he said. Then it's honest. He smiled faintly. Be honest with uncertainty too. I will. At 7:18 I left the ward and saw Chun outside the elevator. She looked as if she had slept less than I did. I got your table request, she said. I don't have all the fields. Start with what you have. If I do that, you'll use gaps against me. Gaps already exist. Writing them down is better than pretending. She rubbed her forehead. I don't know if we can come back from this. Not today, I said. Today we can only come back to sequence. Elevator doors opened. Neither of us moved for a second. Then she stepped in first. At 8:20 voice pre-check session began. Audio segment from Ant's recording compared against known samples from Han and Chun in prior meeting calls. Preliminary result. High consistency, with Han for key quote line. High consistency, with Chun for follow-up line. Formal forensic report pending. I did not celebrate. I wrote. Context support strengthened. At 9:10 committee update acknowledged. Recording contextual weight increased. Still not sole basis. Freeze maintained. Document chain and funds chain to be reviewed in parallel. At 9:23, was sent written line. No distribution movement authorized pending integrated review. At 9:30, when I sat in my car, opened episode 3 folder and added the final status banner. Document validity phase complete enough to transition. At 9:36, I opened episode 4 folder and moved the pre-open routing timestamp node into priority slot. At 9:42, Joe called. You ready to pivot? Yes. Say it once so we align. Episode 3 proved sequence instability in what was presented as complete paperwork. And episode 4? Episode 4 tests whether money routing was prepared before the consent story was even settled.
Good, he said.
Same discipline. Same restraint. At 9:50, I drove toward the registry office to file funds route certificate request and thought about my father's line from last night. Include where I'm uncertain. That was the only way through this. Not perfect confidence. Accurate confidence. By 10:02, the filing queue number flashed on screen. The next chain had officially started. At 10:14, while waiting for my number, I opened the episode 3 log one last time and verified every transition marker. Video contested did not become video dismissed. Document inconsistency did not become document invalidated. Contextual recording did not become dispositive confession. That discipline was the only reason the freeze kept holding. Every time I had wanted to say, this proves everything, I replaced it with this changes confidence. Confidence is less satisfying than certainty. It is also harder to attack. At 10:21 was sent a short operational message. Please keep all future notes in split format. Verified/directional/requested. I answered. Already standard. At 10:24 Joe sent. Carry this format into funds chain. Opposing side will try to bait overstatement. I answered. No overstatement. At 10:27 my aunt sent a photo of her kitchen table with the old phone locked in a metal biscuit tin. Caption. I put it where no one will borrow it. I replied.
Good.
Do not unlock unless we request together. At 10:33 my father texted. Pen leaked in your bag yet? I looked down.
It had.
Blue ink on my thumb and the corner of the filing receipt. I sent him a picture of the stain. He replied. Now it's authentic. I smiled in spite of myself, wiped my hand with a tissue, and wrote a final personal note under the official closeout. Episode 3 taught me that clean signatures can sit on unstable sequence, and unstable sequence can outlast cleaner stories if nobody forces clocks to speak. At 10:41 my queue number was called. I stood up, folder in hand, and walked toward the counter without looking back.